Hi guys, in this video I'm going to start chapter 8 on the wage structure. We begin with a simplified labor market. Simplified in that we're going to make some unrealistic assumptions, which we will relax later on to understand the real job market. First assumption is that all jobs are identical, they're homogeneous. The second assumption is that all workers are identical, they're homogeneous. Third assumption is that there's complete information. So workers know everything about the jobs that are available, including the wages they can get, and the employers know everything about the workers, including the wages that the workers will take. And finally, the fourth assumption is that job mobility is costless. There's no cost associated with moving from one location to another, and there's no cost in changing jobs. Now, clearly these are unrealistic, but this simplified labor market will provide a benchmark for understanding the way the real world works. Let's take a look at these two markets here, say submarket A and submarket B. And initially, we're going to be at the intersection of supply and demand in submarket A, and wages are going to be $10 an hour. QA will be the equilibrium. At the same time, in submarket B, we're going to be at the intersection of the supply curve and the demand curve, but the equilibrium wage here is going to be $5. It's going to be at equilibrium quantity QB. So submarket B is bringing about a $5 wage, and submarket A is bringing about a $10 wage. If the workers are identical in both markets and the jobs are identical in both markets, then the workers in submarket B are going to be seeing the workers in job market A making more. These workers here are going to look at the $5 they're making and say, why don't we go over here and make 10? By the way, that's complete information. The fact that these workers over here making $5 know that there's a market over here that pays $10. That information is available, so they can now act on that. And if job mobility is costless, then they will transition from B to A. When that transition occurs, the supply curve that we started with in submarket B is going to begin to shift to the left. And we're going to see a new equilibrium pursued towards $7.50 an hour. But as these workers in submarket B move to the left, we're going to see a commensurate shift in submarket A, because this is where they're going, to the right. And the wage is going to go down, approaching $7.50. Once the new equilibrium is reached in both markets, the wage is at parity, $7.50 and $7.50, there'd be no further incentive for these workers to leave B to get to A. Okay? So the new equilibrium, we might say, is a long-term equilibrium because these wage imbalances have been rectified. That's the way a simple labor market would work. And if these four assumptions hold up, then wages would be the same across all labor markets. Of course, they're not the same. When you look at different occupational groups, different industry groups, different states, different countries, you see a broad array of different wages. So at least one of these assumptions is being violated. It's possible that what's happening is jobs are not homogeneous. They are instead heterogeneous. One source of heterogeneous jobs is what we call compensating differentials. This is a premium or equalizing difference provided for some relatively undesirable job characteristic, disutility. Simply put, some jobs are less desirable than others. Some jobs have a higher risk of injury or death. Some jobs are less prestigious. Some jobs give less control of the workplace, among other things. Very subjective interpretation. What one person finds as an undesirable aspect of a job, another person might find desirable. But we can all imagine a job that we would not want to do because of characteristics of that job that we don't like. What this does in our model is it causes wages to stay high in the job that is undesirable. So in submarket A, for example, we started out at the intersection of supply curve here and demand curve here. Wages were high. And we, in submarket B, we started out at this supply curve and this demand curve. Remember, wages were $5 here and $10 here. But previously, saw no difference between these two jobs, which meant the people in B would move to A, driving wages down in A and driving wages up in B until they reach parity at 750. That's not the case now. If job A is not a good job, let's say it's higher probability of death, then the people in B may not want to leave. They might look over at A and say, yeah, these people are making 10 bucks an hour and we're only making 5, but I don't want to die. I don't want to be in that job that's dangerous. So they don't leave, which means the equilibrium stays at $5 in submarket B and stays at $10 in submarket A. Maybe you've seen that show, Dirty Jobs. Used to be on TV. So with a guy named Mike Rowe, and he'd go out and he would do these jobs that were very dirty, disgusting, and just kind of weird in some cases. But many times those people made money. They got paid really well because they were doing a job that was undesirable. And the fact that a lot of people didn't want to do that, a lot of people in normal jobs weren't leaving to get the higher wages because of that, kept those wages high for the people that were willing to do the dirty job. Another example of heterogeneous jobs involves skill differentials. Some jobs require you to invest in human capital to qualify for entry. Jobs that require higher costs to get the skill set may pay more in order to attract the workers. If you've got to go out and get a 4-year degree or a professional degree, spend all that money, give up all that time to get the skills to actually enter a job, then you're only going to do that if the job pays more. Skill differentials can actually increase, decrease, or reverse wage differentials caused by compensating differential. From a compensating differential standpoint, doctors should make less than nurses because they have more job prestige, they have more control over the workplace. The job is just a better job than that of a nurse. So we would expect, all else equal, doctors to make less than nurses. But all else is not equal. There's these skill differentials. That means doctors have to spend 8-12 years in college to get the human capital to do the job, whereas nurses have to spend maybe 2 to 4 years to get the human capital to do the job. Therefore, the skill differentials reverse the compensating differentials for physicians, actually leading physicians to make significantly more than nurses. This also explains the differences between skilled and unskilled workers. Skilled workers have to go and get the human capital to qualify for the job. Unskilled workers don't. Therefore, the skilled workers are only going to be attracted to a job that pays more to compensate them for the investment in human capital. Think of it like this. If you have a job market A and job market B again, and job market A and B pay the same amount, but let's say for job market A, you have to go and get a 4-year degree, whereas for job market B, you don't need a degree at all. Well, no one would go into A, because they'd say, well, why am I going to go out and spend 4 years in college to get a degree to make the same amount of money as someone that works in job market B that doesn't have a degree? Therefore, job market A would actually have to pay a differential. They'd have to pay a premium to attract workers to that industry. And that premium is a skill differential. They're compensating people for that investment they've made to qualify for entry into that industry. Efficiency differentials are another thing related to heterogeneous jobs. Some jobs pay an above market wage to increase employee productivity. You may know of some companies that do this. Costco, Chick-fil-A, I think In-N-Out does it. There's been some other companies out there as well that pride themselves on always paying more than they have to. The market rate is what most companies would pay because that's as low as you'd be able to go and get workers. But some companies actually pay more than that. And they do it to create a more efficient worker. That's why we call it an efficiency differential. Why does it create a more efficient worker? Well, it discourages shirking and it reduces turnover. One, shirking is, laziness, not doing the job that you're asked to do. And turnover is leaving a job. So if you're making more than the market rate, let's say you're working for In-N-Out and you're making $15 an hour as a drive-through cashier, and if you lose that job because you're lazy or you just leave, then you're going to go and make maybe 12 bucks at McDonald's. the opportunity cost of losing that job is higher. This is utilized where it's costly to monitor employee performance and the cost of poor performance is high. If managers can't keep an eye on employees, they have to incentivize the employees to do the job that they're being asked to do without oversight. And one way to do that is to make losing that job a higher cost by paying them more than the other companies would. It's also utilized where hiring and training costs are high. If a company has to spend a lot of money to get employees, hiring, and to train them, they want to retain that talent and reduce turnover. So again, they pay an above market rate in order to incentivize people to work hard. Another factor that can create wage differentials is differences in workers, that is, heterogeneous, non-identical workers. So in this section, we'll assume that jobs are the same, information is still complete, and job mobility is costless, but workers are not identical. This shows up with what we call non-competing groups, where workers are not substitutable or interchangeable with each other. Usually this relates to the type, quantity, and quality of human capital, that is, the knowledge that you bring. People that have more experience, more education, people that have innate abilities, natural abilities for certain positions, they're not competing with people that lack these things. Because of that lack of competition, the people make more. That's one of the reasons you're probably in school. So that you can get the education, so that you're in a smaller pool of people and can command higher wages in the marketplace. You no longer have to compete with everybody. You only have to compete with those that have commensurate education. These non-competing groups in the short run can create significant wage differentials. But in the long run, if there is the ability to get training across the population to get that human capital, then we would expect those wage differentials to diminish. Some non-competing groups, however, may not really experience this. If, for example, you see that Major League Baseball pitchers are making millions of dollars a year, and you say, well, I want to make that money, so I'm going to go and get the training to become a Major League Baseball player. Well, you may not have the innate ability. You might not be able to throw a ball fast enough based on your genetics. So that keeps people from really getting the abilities, the training to enter those fields, and preserves the non-competing group. That helps explain why it's often innate abilities that lead to very high wages long term. Another factor that influences differences in wages across workers is differing time preferences. Some people are more present oriented, which means they're not willing to sacrifice a lot today, present consumption, unless they get a lot more in the future. This is the type of person that's not likely to go to college. Other people are more future oriented, meaning that they are willing to sacrifice present consumption for a small increase in future income. This is the person that's likely to go to college. To understand this a little better, we can refer back to chapter 4. And if you recall, we had this net present value computation, which was the present value is equal to the future value divided by 1 plus the discount rate to the n, I should say n, which is the year in the future that value would be available. For example, if I were to offer you $10,000 1 year from now, and let's say you have a discount rate of 0.5, then you would value that $10,000 a year from now at $6,666. But if I offer you $10,000 a year from now, right, and your discount rate is 0.2, then you would value that $10,000 a year from now at $8,333. Well, the only thing that changed from this person to this person is that the discount rate went from 0.5 to 0.2. So this is the person that has the higher discount rate. They see $10,000 a year from now, and they only value it today at $6,666. This is the person that's not going to be as attracted to college because that incremental return, again, say 10,000, doesn't mean as much to them today as, say, this person who sees that $10,000 a year from now with their discount rate that's lower, they value that at $8,333. So this is the person that would go to college. Notice as the discount rate goes down, we move from a present-oriented person to a future-oriented person, just meaning that they're attaching more value today on that future return. So persons with low discount rates acquire more human capital, and they're the type of people that are going to make more money. Okay, that's it for this video. I'll pick up with part 2 soon. Thanks.